experience with a PMAD as a tool for change. And so this final panel that we're ending on today, it's called PMAD Survivors, How One Person's Experience Can Create Change. Through education, policy, art, and community building, many women that have survived a PMAD have used their own experiences as a tool for change. Their bravery and honesty provide new and expecting mothers with the permission to struggle with a PMAD and the hope to make it to the other side. The power of sharing personal PMAD experiences contributes to the destigmatization of PMADs and lets other women know that it's okay to ask for help and access mental health treatment. I want to encourage all of you as we go along in this very important final conversation today. If you have any questions for our panelists, to please go ahead and type it into the Q&A. We'll get to it at the end. Without further ado, it is my great honor to introduce to you our panelists for today. We are joined by Windsor Flynn. She's a perinatal OCD survivor, mental health writer and advocate, and social media influencer. Hello, Windsor. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Paige.
We are joined by Jane Kearney. She's also a PPD survivor, founder of She Matters, which is such an amazing organization that we've been able to partner with recently and look forward to partnering with much, much more. And we'll hear all about her great organization in just a few minutes. We're joined by Erin Babwell, who is also a PPD survivor and filmmaker. She created an incredibly moving and poignant film called The First Year. We actually shared it a few months ago with our day program participants, and it was just such a thought-provoking, honest, raw testimonial and account of Erin's own experience that just offers so much hope. And we'll be offering everybody an opportunity to watch that film and the follow-up email that we send out tomorrow so that you can check it out. We're also joined by Ashurina Reem. She's a psychologist and PPD survivor, and she's the founder of Psyched Mommy, which is one of our very favorite IG accounts, providing so much great and necessary information to new and expecting moms that are struggling. We're also joined by Maggie Lindley, also a PPD survivor and founder of Mindful Mamas. Maggie was very connected to the Motherhood Center at one time, and so we take great pride in seeing how far she's come and what she's done with her own journey and experience. Angelina Spicer, who is a PPD survivor. She is a comedian, actress, social media influencer, and filmmaker that is currently, I think, putting the finishing touches on her film that we are all waiting with bated breath to be released. And finally, but certainly not in any order of importance, one of my favorite and most vocal PPD survivors and advocates, Jamie Belcito. She's the policy director of Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance, of which we have heard mentioned many times today. And this amazing lady went on to run for Congress in Massachusetts. And although Massachusetts doesn't know what they missed out on, I know that this woman has a continuing role and place in politics. She's one of the most outspoken and influential policy makers and leaders that I know. So thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. The way that we've set up our questions today are really in a group format. I'm going to ask a couple of questions and would really love to hear from every one of you as I ask them, and to feel free to pop in and add whatever you want to add as the conversation goes on. But first and foremost, I want to start out by inviting everyone to use a few minutes to share your own personal story with us and how you've used your experience with a PMAD for education, change, or just to normalize the conversation and stigma. So whoever wants to kick us off, as I always say in our groups that I run, if you go first, you get it out of the way.
Great, I'll go first.
Okay.
I am Angelina Spicer. I am a stand-up comedian. That's my day and night job. I am what I also call an accidental activist, in that I did not plan on getting postpartum depression or anxiety. I don't think any of us did. But when I did, my life was completely transformed by way of actually having to go inpatient to a facility for treatment. And in my postpartum depression documentary and comedy special that I'm going on tour with this summer, I talk about my experience at the psych ward as being a vacation. Okay, get into it. It felt like an all-inclusive vacation to the Bahamas. It was the best thing that happened to me. I was able to focus on myself, focus on this new responsibility at hand, and kind of recalibrate my mind on what the responsibilities of being a mother really entailed. So with my social media platform, obviously, you know, I'm a stand-up comic, but I've also helped change legislation here in California where I live to help new moms with screenings, mandatory screenings, referral programs, and I also work with hospitals to train medical folks on how to actually administer these screenings around the country. I'm very excited to be here. Can you tell? Thank you, guys.
Thanks for being here, Angelina.
Of course.
I can jump in next. Hi, everybody. I'm Maggie Lindley. My daughter is Eleanor. She will be 2 in October. I am a PMAD survivor and a graduate of the day program at the Motherhood Center. Just wanted to say thank you to Paige for providing this platform to normalize PMADs and really start the conversation. I'm also very passionate about sharing my story so that other moms know that they're not alone. So quickly, my story, 5 days after giving birth to my daughter, I kind of describe it as feeling like being hit by a truck of debilitating anxiety, where the world kind of felt like I was underwater, like I couldn't make sense of anything. I couldn't perform daily activities like get dressed or eat or sleep. And look, I went many days without sleeping, like 5 days. And so, of course, with that acute sleep deprivation comes hallucinations. And then on top of that, there was some pretty intensive, intrusive thoughts of harm coming to my daughter, both of harm coming to her and me causing the harm. And I didn't understand what that meant. And I found out later that that is a very common symptom of OCD, which is what I had. But I didn't know what was going on at the time. I didn't have language to understand what was happening. I just knew that it really felt like a living nightmare, you know, to have a new baby and to then have images of horrible things happening to that baby is really like the thing of nightmares. And so it was pretty torturous. And I finally ended up going to the ER, where I was denied psychiatric care for 2 days because they didn't have a psychiatrist in that ER. So I went another 2 days without sleeping, without medication. And then finally I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and it was a weekend, so I didn't get to see a psychiatrist until that Monday. So I spent another 3 days alone without any idea of what was going on or an understanding of what was happening, separated from my daughter, my family. And it was extremely frustrating to have to fight so hard to get the care that I needed. 10 days later, I was released from the hospital, didn't really have any idea how to manage OCD or have the tools to, you know, take care of it. So I was kind of losing hope at that point. You know, I still wasn't sleeping. I was still having intrusive thoughts. I didn't know what to do. And finally, luckily, I found the Motherhood Center, and I reached out to them. And that's kind of where the story turns from fear to hope, because they treated me with such respect and kindness and care and empathy. And I finally felt safe and heard. And I did the day program. And I want to quickly share a mantra that became like second nature to me while I was there. And that is, I am enough. I'm doing the best that I can. I don't have to have all the answers. I am loved. And so the day they did that, they did self-compassion and group therapy. I remember the therapist kind of floating the idea out to the room and me feeling like, what? Like, I felt like I was looking into a void. Like, I was like, this is a language I don't speak. I don't understand what you want us to do. And the therapist said, just, create a statement of self-compassion and start saying it. And you won't believe it at first, but just do it. And so you could kind of describe that as a leap of faith where, you do something even though you don't have proof. And so I started saying that statement, I'm enough. I'm doing the best that I can. I don't have to have all the answers. I am loved. And at first it was like, this is baloney. I don't believe this. But after some time, it kind of felt like I was paving a new path of acceptance and self-love in my brain. And that's kind of the catalyst for my journey of healing, and how I have started this discovery of my own beautiful and unique voice. And I'm learning to trust myself and learning to take up space and know that I am deserving of love. And these were all things that I didn't know. So in the end, I'm grateful for my PMAD because, like Angelina was saying, the transformative aspect of it and how my life will never be the same because of it. And I just want to say that I couldn't have done, any of this without my support. Scott, the Motherhood Center, Carol, Kelly, Lauren, and so many other people who I can't even name. I like to call them like my army of angels that kind of held me when I couldn't. And now I'm learning to hold myself. And so, yeah, I know it's a long story, but just wanted to share it all. And I am also a little nervous if you can't tell, but just throwing that out there. I'm going to pass it over to whoever wants to go next.
I can go. My name is Windsor Flynn. I'm also a PMAD survivor. I suffered from anxiety. I still do. And postpartum OCD is what brought me to therapy. So my story is pretty similar to Maggie's. After the birth of my first son, I was filled with anxiety, tons of intrusive thoughts, and like Maggie said, it's the stuff of nightmares, right? It's pretty horrible and awful, and I was felt with a lot of shame. I couldn't tell anyone. So I went about 2 years without saying anything. I wish I didn't wait as long as I did, but I kind of felt like if I could just get it right or exercise enough or have enough play dates or do all the things right, then I could fix my brain. And from the outside, I don't think it looked like there was any problems. I was doing all the things. I was doing all the mom things, but I was suffering a lot internally. So finally, I was pretty close to giving up. I thought I was going to kill my son, honestly, because I had all these thoughts. So I Googled, like everyone does, I think, right? You Google and you find help. And I saw a checklist for postpartum OCD and anxiety, and I hit every symptom. And it was a huge relief because I finally felt like there was a name for what I was going through. And I felt like if I could label this thing, there was a way that I could treat it, because I knew that I didn't want to harm anyone. That was like my worst nightmare, the last thing I ever wanted to do. So I got my diagnosis and I was okay for a little bit, like okay enough to get pregnant again, had another baby. And I, of course, they say, I heard that once you have a PMAD the first time, you're likely to have it again. And that happened to me. I also didn't know that OCD could show up in so many different ways. So when it didn't look exactly like it did the first time, I wasn't sure what was happening, but I just knew that the urgency and the fragility that I was feeling felt really similar. So I looked and I found a specialist, and I'm still working with her. She's like the best therapist ever. I see her every 2 weeks. I was actually just texting her before this panel. And And once I turned the corner and was able to get to the other side, I guess you want to say, I kind of just made it my mission to talk about what I was going through in detail and not leave any of the hard, scary, taboo stuff out, because I wanted other women, specifically mothers, to see that and think, okay, this is something, and I'm not alone. And there are people who can help me. There are people who understand me. There's a community of women that can support me, either virtually or, before COVID, we could physically be near each other and give each other that love and support and acceptance. So for like over a year, I've been just like talking about it every day, just like infiltrating the internet with talking about OCD and symptoms. And I'm on the advisory board now of Made of Millions, which is a not-for-profit that focuses on really changing the narrative of how we view mental health. We've worked on a few campaigns, Nobody Told Me, and our most recent is Shame Kept Me From. So yeah, I also started a Facebook group for other women with OCD. There's about 400 members. And so there's a community that lives online where we can support each other within guidelines of therapy, and share resources and just talk to people who we can be confident that they won't like look at us in disgust or confusion, the things that really make it hard for us to share what we're going through. So yeah, here I am, and I'm really happy to be on this panel.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin. I am a filmmaker and a blogger, and I have had depression pretty much since I was 16 years old. And when I had my baby, I was convinced that I didn't have postpartum depression. I was like, no, I know what this feels like. This isn't it. I can just power through this. It's just the hormones. I think I felt so in a space of unknown about kind of how I was supposed to feel as a new mom that I just didn't know how to identify it. And so I felt like really from the start, every day was like a huge battle. I empathize with what everyone is saying and on the panel, and thank you all for sharing your stories. It's that debilitating feeling of almost like going to war every day. Like I remember, getting up and like sobbing before 5 a.m. and like sitting on my kitchen floor, like shoving food in my mouth because I couldn't remember when the last time I had eaten was. And I think you just feel like you're underwater. And at the time I really thought, this is just motherhood. This is just the transformation. This is just the growing pains. And I had actually started filming a documentary, kind of expressing some of my, I think Paige, you said this so eloquently before, like the anger you feel about like, how do we not know these things? How did I not understand what sleep deprivation was going to be like, or how hard breastfeeding was going to be? And it really wasn't until I had that rock bottom moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And I felt like I had started having suicidal thoughts, but I was really like having that conversation, and I had to finally admit, that I had postpartum depression, that I needed help. And I really threw myself into getting care, into joining group therapy, into joining like any kind of self-care classes online. I mean, I feel like I did everything. I got a great postpartum depression therapist. I got individual therapy. I did group. I really felt like I threw myself into the healing of it. And I will say it changed the narrative of the documentary that I was working on, because now I have this different lens in which to view my motherhood journey. And it gave me a lot of compassion for myself of knowing, okay, those first, couple of weeks weren't just like the baby blues. Like I was going through something really intense and really powerful. And making the documentary also allowed me to heal in so many ways, and allowed me to process my feelings, allowed me to write them out, to talk about them, to share them with my creative collaborators, and really gave me permission to say, this is how I feel, and that it's okay to have depression, and that it doesn't make me a bad mom to be going through this. And I think that was really an aha moment for me, and really transformational.
Thank you, Erin.
I'll go next. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for having me. I really resonate with what Angelina said about being an accidental advocate. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm Dr. Ashri Nareem. Never in my life would I have imagined that I would have experienced a perinatal mood or anxiety disorder. Never in my training to become a psychologist did anybody talk to me about perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And that's what I think is probably the most surprising and shocking piece of it to me, is that in my training, we never even took a course on this. And when I was pregnant, so a little bit of backstory, I experienced infertility and multiple miscarriages. It was a very traumatic process for me. So when I became pregnant with my son, I never thought that it would, trigger this mood disorder. I just thought, like, I want to be pregnant, right? I want this baby. Why is this happening to me? And I had so much anxiety. There was so much trauma along with this high risk pregnancy, all of my past history. And I was having these intrusive thoughts during pregnancy, didn't know what they were. I also didn't have the words for them. And here I am counseling people on the hour, every hour in therapy at the hospital I'm working with, and freaked out by everything that's going on in my pregnancy, having these, thoughts about, what if I fall down the stairs? What if all of these things that are just flooding my mind as I'm sitting here counseling people? And I didn't think much of it. And then I had my son, and I felt this relief for a brief moment to be able to hold him in my arms and know, like, okay, he's here and he's safe. And then from there on out, it felt like everything I was doing was to keep him safe. I felt like the world was like somehow, some way, something terrible was bound to happen. And then all of this anxiety kept coming up. I didn't want people around. I felt like they were going to harm him in some way, or he was going to get sick. And it was just this, it was, like you said, drowning. Everyone's saying these things that I feel like you're giving words to so many experiences, and you're, we don't know when we're going through it so much of the time. When you are walking in the experience, you don't always know, right? Until it's after the fact and it's past, and you think, wow, that was a pretty hard moment for me. That was a pretty traumatic experience for me. And I just remember that it was anxiety, but the rage is what scared me the most. I have this very vivid memory of myself being so overcome with this rage and screaming. My son wouldn't sleep. He was colicky, and my husband was working from home. I went to go lay him down. Nothing was working. I had been, dealing with this baby that was screaming all day long. And I set him in his bassinet, and I walked out, and I just screamed on the top of my lungs. And my husband was so scared, and I was so scared. And I thought, I'm terrible. Like, I'm not cut out for this. I thought I wanted to be a mom, but clearly I'm not meant to be a mom. And I couldn't tell anybody because, what were they going to think of me? And this led me to doing a lot more research on what are some of the experiences that can happen postpartum. Besides, I hear about these people that are experiencing depression, or if it, like, you feel sad or weepy, but what if you're so anxious or so angry or so all of the things that I was going through? And then I realized that there was this umbrella of experiences, and I started my training, and then I started perinatal mental health certification. And in the midst of my own training, I remember sitting in this 2-day session I was at, and I thought, wow, this is what I was going through. And it was like, as much of me educating myself for other people and to help other people, I thought, like, this is really healing to hear and to understand better. And I started an Instagram account a few years ago just to document my journey, not thinking much of it. And that's where that accidental advocacy piece comes in, where I was just caught off guard by one story share, one post, and it reaching so many people, and so many people saying, me too. I'm like, I can't believe you put my experience into words. And that's when I realized, as I started to do this work, that I wasn't the only one. There wasn't a handful of us. There were so many people that were suffering in silence and not wanting to share their story because of that experience of shame and guilt and fear. So that's just been my life's work. And my hope is that no one has to deal with that time period or experience that time period where they don't know what's going on and they don't know where to go. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you, Dr. Lane.
Thank you.
I can go next.
Hey, Jade.
Hi everyone. My name is Jade Kearney. I am the founder, the co-founder and CEO of She Matters. My story is somewhat, and thank you all for sharing. I resonated with so many of the things that you all said. My story is a little different. Prior to having my daughter, I now have a 9-week-old child. So it's weird. I have to make a distinction now, right? Prior to having my 3.5-year-old daughter, I had suffered from hypochondria. I had just on and off with therapy throughout my life, but never did I feel like I was drowning. Never did I feel like I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't make it. I was just used to a life of chaos. Both of my parents are substance abusers. So, I'd done the Al-Anon, I'd done all these things. So I felt like I was in touch with myself enough to know what would happen to me, having a baby. I have my daughter, the most beautiful moment of my life, but I ended up having preeclampsia. So I feel like that triggered me because I was already afraid as a Black woman. We know, many of us, if we don't know the stats around Black women and preeclampsia, I was treated like I had preeclampsia before I had preeclampsia. So I felt like there were a lot of prejudices in the beginning of my pregnancy. Ended up finding a different doctor. He said, we'll deal with it. Dr. Garfinkel in New Jersey. He said, we'll deal with it when we get to it, if that happens. And that made me feel relaxed. But prior to that, I had anxiety. I was going to the hospital and I didn't think like I was dealing with any perinatal mood disorders. I just thought, hey, I'm nervous. I'm getting ready to have this baby. I always wanted a baby. I'm 30, 33. This just happens. So when the doctor called me and told me I had to have the baby immediately, like, you got to go to the doctor, something happened there. Like your blood pressure is too high and you have to come and you have to be induced right now. Something happened in my brain, like, oh my God, what if I'm going to die? Because we know that sometimes Black women go in and they don't come out, not because of anything outside of the lack of care and neglect in the medical field. So I was nervous from right there. My daughter was born. She was I had a healthy pregnancy. And I thought, woo, I'm past the hard part. My mom and I have a tumultuous relationship and I lived with my grandparents. And I remember when my daughter was 3 months, I looked at my mom and I said, how could you leave me? And I had this moment of like everything falling apart. And that is when I started to have the intrusive thoughts. And I don't know what that trigger was, but it was something about feeling like, what if I left my daughter? Like, I just had this, like, what if I do what she did? So I'm like, oh my God, what are these intrusive thoughts? I'm going to work. I'm back at work. The pumping is crazy. And I'm having these thoughts like, I don't want to walk past the kitchen because what if I grab a knife and I stab her? Or I don't want to stand next to this floor to ceiling window because what if I throw her out the window? Like it was on a hamster wheel. Like these were constant. Like I couldn't breathe, but also like I couldn't gather my thoughts enough to like do well at work or do well in anything in my life. So I said, okay, something's going on. Let me reach out to my family. My mom has 8 children. I'm the oldest. And the first thing she said to me was, when I had your brother, number 4 out of the 8, I didn't even want to look at him. I don't even remember what he looked like when he was a baby. I just used to give him the bottle like this, but I didn't have time. We're Black women. I didn't have time to deal with that. Black women don't get postpartum depression. And I was like, okay, so I'm failing, right? I'm failing as a Black woman. I'm failing as a mother. All of these things are terrible. So I reached out to my cousin. I said, my mom's older, like maybe she doesn't get it. And my cousin said, oh, well, maybe you had her too old. My cousin had her daughter when she was 25. And culturally, like I'm older for having a baby, right? So I said, oh my God, this can't be happening. I reached out to my therapist. I reached out to my OBGYN and I talked to a nurse practitioner and she said, I'm just gonna send you Zoloft. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I just told her what was going on. She said she's going to send Zoloft. She sends it and she says, I don't have time to have this conversation. A lot of women go through this. You'll be okay. I thought, okay, this is the rest of my life. I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to get the Zoloft. This is all just falling apart. So I remember one night, I didn't like to be alone. And I don't know if any of you ever had that experience. I hated being alone because I was like, what if I kill her? Like, seriously, like, what if I kill her? What if I kill myself? And one night I specifically remember her crying, and it was doing something to me inside. Like, oh my God, she won't stop crying. And I had this like crazy emotional, like weird thing where, you know, like when you have the intrusive thoughts and you have like kind of the reactions. And I was like holding myself like this. And I said, I can't do this. The next day I call a therapist. I get in with a therapist, and she was a wonderful woman, but I really feel like I was an experiment for her because I was a Black woman saying, I'm not comfortable with this culturally. This is not right for me. And she asked me if she could record it for her class, just based on the cultural implications and the cultural stigmas that were happening. She was interested in me for her class. So I knew that wasn't going to work. So I'm back to Google. I'm Googling because she didn't even explain to me that what I was having was postpartum anxiety OCD. I just knew I was having some type of postpartum thing. So I go online and I'm looking through all of these, articles, and I see all these women saying, I've experienced this. I've had these thoughts. I've had these thoughts. They were all white. Like, there were no Black women who were sharing their story. And so I didn't feel comfortable enough to share mine because I didn't see me. And that's really, really hard when you're going through something like mental, when you're dealing with mental health and you don't see yourself, you just kind of draw back. Because here's the other thing. What if you think I'm the crazy Black girl? I don't know what you're thinking about me. So I don't feel comfortable enough to share. So finally another night, and I know we all went to the nighttime Googling sessions that you're not supposed to do, but I was knee deep in it. And I find this article called Black Women Suffering in Silence. And it was 10 stories of 10 different Black women who had experienced what I was experiencing. Some of them had postpartum depression. They all had PMADs. And what I realized from there was that they all were better. And I said, oh my God, they're all better. They're not doing the Groundhog Day that I'm doing, because at this point it was Groundhog Day. I'm up every morning. I'm miserable. I think I'm going to kill my child. I'm not eating. I don't know what day it is. I'm seeing a psychiatrist. I'm not on any SSRIs. I'm just on a benzo. So now I'm crazy because I think that, like, am I addicted to this thing? Everything was crazy. So I look at the article, I say, oh my God, there are other Black women who experience this, and I have to do something. While I'm treating myself, I'm gonna make a space where Black women can talk to each other and talk about this, because culturally, we are silent. I couldn't find anything. So I had Newark, New Jersey's first mental health care brunch for women, for women of color. It was sold out. And from there, I started She Matters, for Black women who experience postpartum anxiety and depression. And what we do is we offer community, culturally relevant resources, and culturally competent therapists. We are not, like, one thing I wanted to explain was I wanted help. I didn't care if you were Black, brown, yellow, whatever. I wanted you to respect who I am as a Black woman, but I wanted you to help me. And so with She Matters, we make sure that therapists are culturally competent, but you can be whatever and whoever. But now today, I can say this, and I can say this full of strength and full of confidence, but those were the darkest days of my life. And being in my postpartum period right now, I'm 9 weeks postpartum. And every time my friend postpartum anxiety OCD comes, I say, hey, I see you. I'm acknowledging you, and I'm moving on. So to anybody who's there right now, the light is on the other side of the tunnel, and that's it.
Thank you, Jade.
There is absolutely no way I can speak after what Jade just said. Like, I'm out. Like, honest to God, that was so encapsulating of where we are culturally with postpartum depression, which it seems to be the only term that folks recognize, right? And it's not, that image to me is like me sitting in a corner crying, where for me, I wanted to burn my house down. It was that all encompassing, and what Jade is speaking about, and how I even met Paige. And I love every single 128 of all of you on this call right now. How did I meet Paige? Because what I'm hearing resonating through all of our conversations are, I didn't know this existed. There was nobody who could help me. Jade, my aha moment was at 2 a.m. Okay, when I found out that me wanting to burn my house down was actually something called postpartum rage. And I connected with Paige because one of my superheroes, aside from giving birth to two beautifully strong, amazing girls that were the best things that I could have ever made in my life, decisions in my life that had nothing to do with them. It had to do with how I felt. It wasn't the baby, it was how I felt. Was I always joke, I say, I make beautiful babies, I know how to flamenco dance, I make great Syrian food, and I know how to do policy. And I worked with the Massachusetts state legislature, and I modeled, went after someone like Paige, who had done this in New York. And then I found a bunch of folks who were really loud and had bad accents like me, from California to Maine, Florida to Alaska, Jersey are in there. And we went to DC, and that's how I met Angelina. And it's how I met Paige, and it's how I met Lisa Tremaine in Jersey. And we went and we started talking about, did you know that this is 1 in 5 women? Although we all feel like it's just us, it's 1 in 5 women. And when we look at individuals who are economically challenged or facing racial disparities and having lack of cultural competency, I am all over She Matters, Jade, by the way. It's 1 in 3. And when we take a look at Native American population, or folks in Alaska, or anyone who's isolated, or maternity care deserts, or any of this, it is 1 in 3. To hear Dr. Ream say, I was like professionally trained clinically to do these things, and I didn't know. It's 2021. What was termed milk madness in the 1850s is exactly what we're talking about right now. My own grandmother was institutionalized in a local mental institution here for postpartum, but we didn't talk about that. No, we did not talk about that, because those are things that happen to other people, not in our family. The gig's up, silence no more, and harness the powers to be that right now there is in Congress, a maternity care Congress. Why? Because when you elect women into office, they make changes. There is now a Black maternity care caucus, because we are electing women that are Black who have been using their voice for as long as can be to change the way that we take care of people. We are talking about midwives. We're talking about doulas. We are having representatives say this is the essence of our communities, the health and wellness of our women and our babies, and how our generations are going to flourish. So I will encourage anyone who wants to join the remote party of lobbying or advocating our congressional members. We have a Shiro as our vice president right now, who has made sure that maternal health, and especially women of color's maternal health, is centered in our policy right now. We're not just talking about trains, planes, and automobiles and infrastructure. We're talking about families, children, and women in childcare in our infrastructure. So now's the time for us to use that anger. I wrote down WTF because somebody put that in the chat, and I was like, yeah, that's how we all got here. It's that WTF moment of why it didn't have to be this hard. And so Paige, look what you've done with the Motherhood Center. I want to thank everyone being here today. We are changing the trajectory of this conversation, and one voice matters. Every single one of our voice matters, and individually and then collectively. So thank you so much for having me be here today and hearing these stories.
Oh, Jamie, thank you. And I've had goosebumps most of the day, but they're particularly intense since this panel began. I just want to pause for a minute and just give so much thanks and appreciation for everybody's strength and bravery and vulnerability to share your stories, because it's not easy, and yet it's so important. And your willingness to talk about the things that feel as though we're not allowed to talk about, or if we talk about these things, are they going to take my baby away? Or are people going to think I'm an unfit mother? Or are they going to judge me for not being good enough? These are such common stories, right? And as you said, Jamie, and as we say all the time, 1 in 5 is the standard. That's what we say. It's really more like 1 in 3. Hello, adorable little person. And as I'll say yet again, and I've said many times throughout this presentation, there is all kinds of research that's out there right now. And the one I keep citing is 72% of all new and expecting mothers are experiencing postpartum depression and anxiety perinatal during pregnancy and postpartum right now. That is unacceptable. And that is a mental health crisis and emergency. And just go ahead, Jamie.
I was going to say it's the #1 complication of pregnancy. And when we take a look at the maternal mortality review committees that are starting to be implemented across the 50 states, suicide and combined with substance use, and substance use, mental health, and suicide is the #1 reason why postpartum women are dying in this country. And nobody is capturing that. Jade pointed to something that hits the money, hits the nail on the head. Preeclampsia is a main reason why women are dying, and maternal mortality is finally being discussed in this country. It's the worst maternal mortality rates in the industrialized world, and we spend the most money in healthcare. But this is a silent killer.
It absolutely is. And I know that this could be a lot for some of our audience members to hear. And I think it's so important. I think it's so important that we share our truth, as we've been hearing over and over again throughout the course of today, because our truth is power, and it gives permission. And I can't tell you how many women have referenced their struggle with a PMAD using water. I know for me, I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was paddling as quickly as I could just to keep my lips above the water to breathe, but that's all I could do. And I remember thinking, I just need someone to throw me a life preserver. Just throw me a life preserver and pull me out of this ocean that is so big and so vast that all I can do is paddle for all my life and just pull me out onto shore. And it has everything to do with why our logo at the Motherhood Center is a life preserver, because it's what we need in those moments, undeniably. And so for all of you that are here, that have moved to the other side of your painful journey and used your own experience as such powerful tools for education and change, knowing that we're joined by so many new and expecting mothers today, many of whom might very well be struggling, what would all of you say to a pregnant or new mom right now? What do you wish that someone had told you when you were in their shoes?
I guess I'll speak to that, especially because I'm my own customer discovery right now with the 9-week-old. So what you feel matters. That's why we call she matters, because you matter. Like, the fact that you didn't eat today matters. The fact that you didn't take a shower in 2 weeks matters. Like, your baby surviving is important, but you surviving is so important. So don't forget about yourself. If it feels weird, especially when we're going to maternal health care, if you're in pain, and this is specifically to women of color who will struggle with pain silently, on the crux of being strong. If you are in pain, if you are bleeding, if you are, and you feel weird about it, speak to someone, speak to a medical provider, speak to a therapist. You deserve to feel better. And I don't think that women understand that. You deserve to feel better. You do not have to feel bad every single day. Now, we're not going to feel great every day. That's just not how life works. But you don't have to have the Groundhog Day where you're like, here we go again. Speak to someone outside of your family circle, like someone that's a professional.
I would also like to add, just to anybody that's struggling, you're not alone. There's so many people that have the similar experience to you. It does get better. It may not feel like it in the moment, but there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can heal. Sometimes it feels like it's impossible to heal, but you can. It's okay to not be okay. This is not your fault. Don't blame yourself. You've done nothing wrong. This is something that's happening to you, not something that you're doing. It's okay to ask for help. You don't have to be perfect at being a mom. Trust that you're doing the best that you can, and that is enough, and you are loved.
I will also say too, I felt like in my postpartum depression and kind of coming to the other side of it, I felt a lot of resentment for other mothers who hadn't experienced it. And I will say, having a 2.5-year-old now, I feel so much grace towards that period in my life. And as other panelists have said, I'm actually thankful for it. I feel like I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about boundaries. I've learned so much about what I need, how to ask for help, even now if I'm having a bad day. And I would love to tell any mothers who are struggling, like, you don't even know how strong you are right now. Like, you are all warriors for going through this. It's not normal. It's awful. As we've all spoken about, it feels debilitating, but it doesn't have to be this way. And you're going to get to a place in your life where you're going to look back and you're going to go, my God, I can do anything. If I can survive that, if I can, get the help I need and take care of myself, I truly now view myself in a totally different way. And that is possible for you too.
I love that. There were two things that came out of my personal experience that have become my own pieces of advice I wish I could have told myself. And I think it goes back to what Jade said about, finding support, and it's not going to always be your family. That is a big shocker. Like when you are in this experience and you're like, well, the support people might not be my family or even my friends or the people that I have really have been there for me. They might not know how to support you. And for me personally, culturally, it was not something that we talked about. I'm Assyrian. My mom was she didn't know what to do. She froze, and she would often say, do you not want him? Do you not want to be a mom? And it was not what I needed. It was not what I wanted to hear. She didn't know my experience. And I knew that the support I was getting had to be elsewhere. So I think one of the things that if I could have told myself and tell anybody else is that, it might not be the people that you expect to support you. It might be a complete stranger. It might be somebody in a support group, or it might be somebody, your therapist. It can be anyone, and it can be everyone. It can be people that you least expect. The other piece of advice that now when I look back at myself and who I was that you're allowed to change your mind. Every day you're evolving as a mom, and you are just thinking today I don't necessarily need or want the things that I wanted yesterday. I started off and I was like, I'm going to breastfeed. It's going to be great. It's so easy. I'm sure, I took the class at the hospital. They told me all of the things I needed to do. I got that pillow. I'm good to go. And that was my biggest source of stress. I put so much pressure on myself. I had so much guilt about so many things. And I just wish that I could tell myself back then, you can change your mind. It's okay if you choose something today that's different than what you expected or what people told you should do. And every day, just reevaluate that. Am I in a different place today? Is what I need different today? And go from there. But we are all allowed to. I changed my mind now. I'm a different mom today than I was when I was in those early days postpartum. Got way less judgment, way less judgment for myself and everybody around me. So those are my two pieces of advice.
Thank you.
I just want to piggyback on what everyone has said, in that the people that are going to support you aren't necessarily going to be the ones that are closest to you, because, in my personal experience, also people who are closest to you have the hardest time acknowledging or seeing your suffering because it's painful for them. And it might bring up feelings that maybe they aren't supporting you enough, or maybe they contributed to this, or, people have a lot of shame that's unwarranted. Let me just say, shame is not something that we deserve to be feeling around PMADs. But when those people that you expect to be your supporters are unable to do that, or they don't validate you, that doesn't mean that your struggle is not real. That doesn't mean that what you're experiencing is made up or you're being dramatic. That just means that you need to look somewhere else. And that place may be at the doctor's office, or you might have to Google something, go to social media, or ask for referrals anywhere you can from the pediatrician, maybe, you know. I just think it's really important not to stop looking for support, because I feel like family, you always think they're going to be the ones and they can't always do it. You know, they're people too, and they're doing their own things. I think that you just have to keep going and don't give up. There are people who understand you, and there are people who will validate you and support you, and it gets way better.
I'm sorry, I know I already went, but can I add something really, really quick? You sparked something for me.
You sure can.
If your baby is 14 months, you can still be having postpartum anxiety, OCD, all of these, because the clinical term is like 0 to 12 months. Like at She Matters, we make the distinction, like your child could be 3 years old. Like maybe you never got over it. Maybe now it's full blown like depression, anxiety that stems from that. But if you're on right now and your child is 18 months and you're like, well, I missed the timeline. No, you didn't. Log on to wherever you need to log on, call who you need to call, because it's still in that space of where you're giving birth to your child triggered this thing, right? And it's okay if your child's 18 months and you're still feeling it. I didn't get better until my daughter was 19 months, because I didn't start my SSRI until her first birthday. I said, if I'm not feeling better, like a little bit of myself by the time she's 1, I am going to get on an antidepressant. And that was hard, especially as a Black woman. Like you say antidepressant, everybody starts throwing holy water over you. So I just felt like that's what I'm going to do. And I did it. And so I didn't start to feel better like till she was like almost 2. So I just wanted to say that it's okay if your child is past 12 months.
Thank you, Jade. And I think we lost Jamie momentarily. She will rejoin. We're going to have her rejoin the conversation. I'm going to pop in until she's back with us and answer my own question. And to answer my own question, I would say, as I've said so many times today, share your truth, speak your experience, because in doing so, you give other women permission. A story that I like to share a lot with women in treatment here at the Motherhood Center as a tool for normalization is, you know, when I was at my worst after my son was born and I had not left the house for weeks. I don't know when the last time was I'd taken a shower or eaten anything. It was the summer. We were living in a studio apartment that was like 350 square feet. And I knew we just had to get outside and get some fresh air. I just had to do it as much as I didn't want to do it. And I remember walking to the park and walking through the park with my son in a sling and looking just in a fog at all of these mothers that were down on their hands and knees playing with their infants and toddlers, or pushing them in swings and smiling and engaging and looking attached and bonded, and thinking to myself, this is just a reminder all around me of how I'm failing at this. I suck at this motherhood thing. I should have never done this. What a mistake. And why did I even come here to be reminded? And I sat down on the bench and I just kind of looked out into space, and out of the corner of my eye, this beautiful woman started walking towards me as I sat on the bench. And I remember thinking to myself, please do not sit next to me, because you are another perfect mother that's just going to make me realize how bad I am at this. And she was like size 4, wearing like beautiful white cheery clothing. She had this cute little girl strapped to her chest. She had her hair done and her makeup on, and she was moving in to sit next to me on this bench. And sure enough, she sat down and she took that baby out, and the baby smiled at her and she smiled at the baby. And it was this like Pampers box moment that I was trying not to look at. And then she looked over at me and saw that I too had a baby hidden in a sling somewhere. She said, "Isn't this the greatest thing that ever happened to you?" And I looked at her and I said, no, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And most of the time I wish I hadn't done it. And her smile started to fade and the tears started rolling down her face. And she said, thank you so much for saying that. I feel the same way. And I will never forget that moment, because to this day, when we are at the Motherhood Center in Bricks and Mortar and we see some of the most well put together women come in and sit on the sofa and we're like, is she a movie star? Is she a reporter? Like, what's going on? And those are oftentimes our illest patients, because we feel this need to have to pretend and act and not show what's really going on inside of us. And so my invitation is to be honest and share your story, because when we do that, we let that woman sitting next to us who feels this need to fake it and pretend, to let her guard down and say, this is hard for me too. I'm going to try to figure out how to get Jamie back in here. I'm going to do it. And as I do that, I'm going to ask another question to everyone who's here today. As we've learned, PMADs are on the rise. More and more women are requiring therapy, medication management, or a day program like we offer here at the Motherhood Center, even hospitalization due to the acuity of their PMAD symptoms. As a supplement to these necessary and important levels of care, what are some communities, including your own, that aim to normalize the struggles of motherhood? I always like to suggest to women, especially in this new social media world that we live in, yes, it's nice to follow famous people who are, looking perfect after they've had 6 kids, and also surround yourself with communities that are normalizing motherhood so that you see what it really looks like. So I'm wondering if you can share with our audience, what other communities do you feel like are important to share and encourage moms to take advantage of?
I love this question, Paige. So after my experience, I was on kind of a mission to share some of the learnings that I gathered during my time at the Motherhood Center with other moms who may not be in crisis, but could still benefit from some of the concepts that were so life-changing for me. So I started Mindful Mamas, which is a 4-session group program for working moms or moms in the community to meet up for an hour each week, connect, do a little meditation, check in and share how they're doing, and then talk about a mindfulness topic like self-compassion, acceptance, emotional awareness. And it's kind of like your own little mama pod. It's very much inspired by the Motherhood Center, but it's like a light version to kind of give you that support in your community, that peer support. I started it at my company Slack, and so each cohort has their own Slack channel where you can kind of chat and share pictures and questions. And I've also expanded it to my community in Beacon, New York, where I live, and I'm hoping to expand it to other areas as well. So if you are somewhere and you'd like to have a cohort in your area, you can visit Mindful Mamas community, mindfulmamas.community. It's kind of it was hard to get a domain. So mindfulmamas.community, and you can sign up for a cohort, and you can also share your zip code so that we could create one near you. So it's a space to come and be your authentic self and kind of understand that you're not alone as you navigate motherhood and all of the different responsibilities that come with that.
Thank you, Maggie. What others?
Hey, I don't know if you can hear my voice, although I'm not on the panel anymore.
Oh, I'm trying, Jamie. It's just my Zoom abilities are not good, but please, yes, jump in and then we will come right back to you, Erin.
Yeah, Erin, sorry about that. I just wanted to see if I was still here, because I can see myself. But my 5th grader called right as I was supposed to speak, because we're mothers, and that's what happens. They get older, which is kind of incredible. I wanted to put that out there. I now have an 8 and an 11-year-old, and what we're talking about today becomes more in the rear view mirror. It transforms where we go, and it informs us where we go. And I can tell you that you will eventually have conversations with these small people that you never expected. And I did want to say that just remind yourself, you are the best parent for your child. Even if you don't feel like it, that's okay. The child doesn't know that. You know how you're not feeling well, but the child thinks you are the cat's meow. And I also always think, try to have as much compassion for yourself as you would if a friend called you looking for help, because you'll always be there for that friend. But we are never as compassionate to ourselves as we are to someone else. And I think that it takes practice, as even Maggie was talking about. What do you mean you want me to say good things about myself? I'm like the worst person I've ever met. Well, you got to change your narrative. And I do want to say that sometimes I've seen, especially the pandemic, the Facebook groups have been really, really helpful for people to reach out locally. And now the weather is getting a little bit nicer, but just knowing that you're not alone. We have all sorts of Facebook groups and the hospital groups, and even different mothering groups through Facebook during this pandemic that I've seen being used, even at the local level, even at the neighborhood level. So I'm excited to see that we'll continue to evangelize these modalities, even in a post, hello, I'm back.
You're back.
Pandemic world, right? Even this right here. Normally I'd be in New York, talking about the Red Sox, but instead I'm on this Zoom with my friends today. And I think that we need to continue to have these outreaches, because we've seen even telehealth, reaching out. If it's hard when you can't find somebody to watch the baby, if you have another child to take care of, all of these things. And so I've seen that the community, even funding, I always go back to policy, because that's where money comes, and then it goes into the communities, and then that's how you do outreach. And I think that that's something that we can continue to work on, to make the Motherhood Center function, and She Matters function, and all of the other. I'm following everyone on Instagram, by the way, so if you see me scouting you, it's because I am. So thank you for putting that question out there.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm glad you were able to rejoin us.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I feel grateful that the internet exists, and that, we're able to find and connect with so many women on Instagram. I'm a full-time caregiver along with being a filmmaker. So being able to just DM somebody or to see something, I feel like it's like my co-working space almost, of keeping up with people. But I will also say, something I really struggled with as a new mom was finding media that I could connect with. I feel like my TV shows are my best friends, and I like to know what they're up to. And I felt a real deficit of not seeing myself on screen, and not seeing these experiences, and, the struggles, the pain, the vulnerability that we experience as new mothers. And so I would also like to plug my documentary, Year One, that people can watch right now. It's free online for the month of May on YouTube. You could just Google Year One documentary. And it shows the ups and downs. And we released it yesterday with the help of Motherly. And I've been so overwhelmed and so blown away by the comments that I've been getting about how women feel like I'm telling their stories. Because I feel like when we hear the truth of how painful it is sometimes, as you said, Paige, on that bench, when you say, yeah, this isn't all it's cracked up to be, we do give women permission to feel the same. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And yeah, that's it.
That was such a great story about the bench. It actually reminds me of somebody asking me at the grocery store, what's it been like? And your knee-jerk reaction is like, it's so good and great. And I remember clear as day telling this friend of ours, it's really hard, actually. And my husband's looking at me and he's like, oh gosh, she's about to tell them. She's going to tell them all about what is happening. And being honest with people is so important. And that's why I've tried my best to create community online. So I was offering a lot of one-on-one therapy until you realize that you can't see everybody. And that's when I started creating online courses and workshops with a little bit more interactive feel to them. So I do that online at Psyched Mommy, and that's me across every platform. And I am working on a really cool project with my dear friend that I met online, which is incredible in and of itself. Erica Jassa from Happy as a Mother and I are putting together a virtual community, because all of the moms that take our workshops always want to know how they connect after. You know, how can we connect? I share so much of your story. How do we talk to each other? How do we connect? So we are creating a little bit of a private community for moms to come together and host social gatherings and Q&As and really develop more meaningful relationships. So if you're on social media, find me. My website, all of it is the same, Psyched Mommy, but that's a little bit about what I do in the community I've created.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan.
There's an Instagram, it's called Mommy, MAHMEE. Serena Williams is a partner in it, and it's a Black woman who created it's for maternal health, but they really do touch on maternal health very well in PMADs. So I think that's a great Instagram account. And this is for anybody that's mental wellness workers or mental health professionals. You can also follow She Matters. Our app drops this week. And so we look for culturally competent mental health professionals to be a part of our community, so that when women are looking for help, you guys are on there, and we just create the relationships. But I'm looking for all of the mental health professionals to be a part of our community as well, and learn some things that you may not know about Black women, Black mothers.
Thank you, Jade. And Windsor, we know that, oh yes, Jamie, go.
I was just going to throw in here again from the, the policy angle of how we harness energy. The greater we were able to get funding into the last package that came out of the last administration in DC for a $3 million maternal mental health access line. And so we're working currently right now to get that implemented and get more funding so that Jay, like you were talking, the 3 a.m. epiphany when you're on that phone looking for something, or the 2 a.m. like we've all been there, Paige, and everyone on the panel here, that there's actually going to be local resources that can connect that mom, that parent, to say, you're not alone. It's okay. You might feel like you are, but you're not. And we're gonna connect you to services, and then Motherhood Center gets connected with this person, or She Matters gets connected, or whatever that system is that connects the people. And so we can start to create support services around this. And I'm really excited about that.
Thank you, Jamie.
As far as community goes, I'm all about creating your own community if you don't have one. I mean, I know that a lot of women are not having babies in their hometowns always. Maybe they're moved somewhere for work and they haven't built that community of moms, or maybe, like, especially for me, my friends didn't have babies yet. So I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And that was actually really, really hard. So I think when you don't have a community readily available, being the one to say, hey, I see this lack, let me start something. That's always a really good option. Like Paige said, you give other women permission, and there's always going to be someone else who's looking for community. It's the people who don't have a community that feel so alone. And when you feel alone, you're more hesitant to reach out to somebody who may be right there at the park next to you. So I think virtual communities are a really great option. And just stepping out of your comfort zone, be the mom at the park who says, hey, I don't have a lot of friends. Would you like to hang out with me and my 2-year-old with your 2-year-old? Like, can we hang out? And you kind of just cold call people, you know, like you have to build when there isn't one that already exists. That's what I did anyways. And that's how I found some of my closest friends, by randomly like accosting moms at the playground. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Windsor. We're getting to the end of this amazing and inspirational panel, and I just want to give everybody a chance, not necessary, but if there's anything that you feel like we didn't cover today, that we missed, that you want new and expecting moms who are listening to know, any last moments of hope, truth, support, I want to give you that last opportunity.
I wasn't here for the earlier portion, 9-week-old baby. But I just want to say to all women, but especially any women of color on this call, like culturally, I understand what happens when you tell your family something's wrong and you want to get on medication and you want to make yourself better. And there's a disconnect there that happens. Like, you should be strong enough to deal with this. At the doctor, you should be strong enough to deal with those contractions. You should be strong enough to handle postpartum bleeding. You should be strong enough. And I just want to tell any of you on the call, strong enough is relative. Strong enough to what? You need to take care of yourself. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be able to let go. You deserve to be able to breathe. You deserve that. We all deserve that. But there's something that's innately cruel when it comes to especially BIPOC mothers, about how we go through motherhood and the fear that we have. So I just want to say that you deserve to be able to breathe. You deserve to love yourself, and you matter. She matters.
Thank you, Jade. That was beautiful.
I'll just put out here, the CDC's doing a great job with the Hear Her campaign. You know, She Matters, Hear Her. It's important to listen to women. Listen to women and know that this is a temporary, treatable time in life. And it's the only treatable mental health complication is postpartum. So do not be afraid to do what you need to do to make you healthy, because all that matters is that you get back to feeling like you, and it will happen.
Thank you, Jamie. Just want to thank everybody for being here today, for sharing your very raw and vulnerable and honest stories. And in doing so, opening the doors even further for other women that are struggling to come forward and ask for help. That is our gift, right? It's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's on the other side. It's what we can give to new and expecting mothers that are struggling. So thank you to the moon and back times infinity, as I'll tell my children frequently that I love them to the moon and back times infinity. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank everybody in the audience for joining. We're going to end this panel, and then we're just going to spend a few more minutes with some giveaways that we've had donated to participants. Thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, ladies, because you're changing the conversation. So as we conclude, one of the most, I mean, I'm not trying to toot our horn or anything, but like one of the most inspirational conversations that's been going on all day. Wow, I feel so inspired. I feel so lucky. I feel so moved. I feel so educated by all of the amazing women that joined us here today, shared their stories, shared their insight, shared their fight, and shared their enthusiasm to give us all that little bit of extra energy as mothers that we felt like we had none of after one of the most difficult years of our lives. And just give a shout out of praise and thanks. And so as we wind down today, and I see that Dr. Berndorf is joining us, Just wanted to give you a chance, Catherine, to say some final parting words to our audience. And then when you're done, I'm going to be able to announce a few great prizes. And before I turn it over to you, as I started with a shout out to this amazing relationship we formed over the past few months with the Lullaby Project, which is a project that runs out of Carnegie Hall. And what they do is they work with new and expecting mothers to write and record lullabies for their baby, or for the little person that they're growing inside of them if they're pregnant. So on and off today, we've played some of these very special lullabies that women who are in the Motherhood Center family have written and created. And I just want to thank them for sharing their lullabies. So that's what you'll hear in the background. So Catherine, I'm going to hand it over to you for a final farewell.
I haven't had so much, I don't know what, so many goosebumps, so much fun, so many tears in my eyes for the full day sitting in this chair in this room at home. It's been a while since we had a day like this, maybe a year, but it was incredible. I cannot, it was riveting. And the honesty and the passion and the anger and the pain and the tears and the information and the legislation, pretty much hit it all. I want to credit you, Paige, and the marketing, education, advocacy team, Shannon Dixon, Elizabeth Barron. You guys kicked butt. You guys got this together, pulled this off on behalf of all of us at the Motherhood Center, where we are racing through the day with really acute patients right now in our day hospital, and getting outpatients in, doing evaluations, trying to find more clinicians, because we don't want a waiting list, and we want to have a more diverse patient population and staff, and so inspired by all of from the first panel, the needs and the deficits in the world and what we can do better and more of. And they're just, my mind is a little bit blown, and I'm both like high and also just depleted from this day. I've been on the whole time and it's been incredible. So these are treatable illnesses. Everyone said that, and everyone who's participated, there's been a resounding, there's been such consistency among what's been said. So I just want to leave it at that. The message is clear. These are real illnesses. If you don't feel well, please reach out, get help. We are here for you at the Motherhood Center. We have information. If we're not the right place or you're somewhere else, we can help you find it. There's so many wonderful organizations you heard about today, and that it's like tip of the iceberg. So thank you to everybody. I'm really grateful and thrilled with how today went. It's very cool.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you for starting the Motherhood Center and creating such a safe, effective place for women that are looking for clinical care and treatment. So in our last moments here with everybody today, we had some very generous gifts donated, and we did a drawing for folks that had registered for today's event. So I'm just going to announce some of our giveaways and the names of women that were selected, and just let you know, for everybody who joined us today and registered, we are also so thankful to many of our partners who I'll list in just a moment, who also offered us discount codes to their products and services for new moms. So I'm going to start off. We very generously were given a $100 gift card from Monica and Andy. And that is going to be going to Nicole Bowman. So congratulations, Nicole, for your $100 gift card from Monica and Andy. We were also generously gifted a Nanit Pro Bundle baby monitor, and that's going to be going to Whitney Cobble. Congratulations, Whitney. And I'll just say, for those of you who are selected, if you don't happen to be a new or expecting mom, we encourage you to pass it on to somebody who is, or if for some reason, you are having a hard time thinking of someone, we will help you with that too. We got a very generous gift from Kindbody, of which we heard on one of our panels today, for a free fertility assessment. That is going to be going to Nadia DePaulo. So Nadia, congratulations. We'll be reaching out, just so you know, everybody who's a winner, Shannon will be reaching out to you from our team to figure out how to ship these gifts to you and get these gifts to you. We were also gifted a free snoo. And so Malika Abdulina, you are the recipient of our free snoo. Again, Shannon will reach out and figure out how to get that big box to you within the next few days. One of our favorite gifts to give away, oh, I thought I misplaced it for a moment, is Dr. Catherine Berndorf's book, What No One Tells You, A Guide to Your Emotions from Pregnancy to Motherhood. This is a book that everyone should have on your bookshelf, whether you're a new mom or not. And we have three very lucky winners for Dr. Berndorf's book. We have Noelle King, we have Jennifer Lee, and we have Michelle Cruz. So congratulations to all of you. We will be reaching out to make sure you receive this amazing book. And last but not least, as mentioned, as you're hearing in the background, examples of our amazing lullabies that our moms that are in treatment with the Motherhood Center now have made with the Lullaby Project. We have two winners that have been selected to both write and record a lullaby with the Lullaby Project. That is Nicole Jones and Lily J. And just to let you know, you do not have to sing, you don't have to do anything. The Lullaby Project provides some musicians and singers from Carnegie Hall that will do that for you. So I just want to thank everybody again for joining us today. Congratulations to our winners. Shannon will be reaching out to you to figure out how to get you your gifts. I also want to give a big thank you and shout out to the Hatch, Little Spoon, Fit Pregnancy Club, Yanova, Gemma, Prenatal Yoga Center, Union Square Play, and Kindbody, who also have offered discount codes for products and services for new and expecting moms. This event was recorded, and so hopefully by the beginning of next week, we will have it on our website in case you were not able to join parts of it. It will be there for you to watch as many times as you like. And then finally, what I would like to end on is all of us here at the Motherhood Center are wishing you a wonderful Mother's Day. And I want to tell you that Mother's Day this year doesn't have to look like the flowers that Reshma had mentioned in her upcoming Mother's Day campaign. Somebody wrote on our Instagram earlier this week, I really don't want to have to go to that cheap brunch again that my husband keeps taking us to, thinking that that's what I want. Ask for what you want this Mother's Day. If you want to be alone in the house for 4 hours and just stare at the wall, ask your husband to take the kids out or your partner. Ask for what you want. Mamas, you deserve it. This has been a hard year and you deserve the best Mother's Day of your life. So please ask for what you want and need. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. I'm going to end now on a final slide that gives you some contact information for the Motherhood Center and some other resources. We'll be sending out an email to everybody who registered that will be chock full of everything you've heard about today so that you can read up on everything and learn more. And we're going to leave you with this final lullaby that one of our moms created with the Lullaby Project. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for
Let's go out and play. Skidamarink all day. You just go be you. The world is waiting for you too. You are my capable little girl, strong and smart and stubborn too. With such a big heart, you will go far. Keep God with you in all you do. Every day we are together, just just you and I. You knew that I was waiting for you, so let's go out and play. Let's get in the rink all day. You just go be you. The world is waiting for you too. The world is waiting for you too. The world is waiting for you too.